Okay, let me just give you a brief introduction. As you're aware, from next year, it's the graduate diploma that's the entry course if you wish to become a migration agent. The graduate certificate ends at the end of this year. So besides the graduate diploma, which consists of 8 units, you also have to pass a capstone exam. No one knows who is going to be the provider of the capstone exam, neither has it been legislated as yet. So when that happens, we'll worry about it then. But the objective of the course is to prepare you, not only as migration agents, future migration agents, but also to ensure that you're okay at the capstone exam, that you pass the capstone exam, I should say. So it comprises now of 8 units. Some of you, I think, are familiar with the graduate certificate, is that right? Which was 4 units. Now it's double the number of units, it's 8 units. And it gives us more of an opportunity to actually focus on a lot more practical studies and case law, which we were limited by in the past because it was only 4 subjects. Now, I don't want to give you a complete spiel on all the individual subjects here because I'm sure you're going to be falling asleep. But a lot of the material, the prescribed text, the university itself produces. So you will all have to get a copy of all the relevant legislation. It's impressive to the family when you put it on your bookshelf. And you can profess that you know everything in this, which you'll have to at the end of the day.
Hi everyone. So my background is that I'm the program coordinator for the migration law programs at Vic Uni. And a lot of the time the question, there are several providers of this course. I get asked, why would you study at VU? Why not study one of the other institutes? And there's many reasons, but 2 of the big reasons are sitting right next to me and another one sitting there. The teaching staff at VU are all practicing migration agents. This isn't something that all the universities can claim. It's something that a lot of courses don't have, and I think honestly, I think it's one of the best things about our course. Migration law changes so frequently that we have to update all our materials in our textbook every 6 months just to try and keep up with it. And that's something that we'll be facing as future migration agents. Having people working in the field, being able to provide advice to new students is invaluable. So for me, these 2 here, and we've got Murray there who has more experience than almost everyone in this room put together. It's such a great knowledge bank to be able to tap into your studies here. Working for Vic Uni, I'll address some of the more administrative aspects of our course for next year. As has been said, it is changing from 4 units to 8 units. Whilst I'm sure many of you would like to have studied the 4 units, personally I think you're going to be graduating much stronger with 8 units. The 4-unit course is very intensive and very quick. It does not allow us to get into the depth of information you'll need as migration agents as much as we would like, and it doesn't let us consolidate that information as much as we would like. The way the course next year is structured is that students will begin with a more introductory to legal studies unit, which is great because we understand that students in our course come from all backgrounds. Very few students will have a background in law before doing our course. One of the main inquiries I get from students is, I don't know anything about law, will I be any good? And I'm a mature age student who hasn't studied for a while and I'm scared because this is all new to me. And the great thing is that's what everyone is. Very few students have a background in law, very few students are recent graduates. So having a subject at the very beginning of the course that will get you up to speed quickly in how to reference the wealth of legislation that you will need to, and be able to then use that knowledge for the rest of your course is really great. And at the end, on the other side, bookending our course is an applied subject where you'll take all that knowledge you've learned, all those skills that you've gained, and you'll put them to practical use, including practical assessments. And this will give you a real idea of what you will actually be doing as a migration agent. And I feel like across degrees everywhere, students graduate and do not know what it is they'll actually be doing. We do not have that issue with the graduate diploma. I got a question earlier, and I'll repeat it because I think it was a good one. It was inquiring the entry requirements for next year. The entry requirement for the graduate diploma is a bachelor level qualification. It can be in any field and it can be international. But because it is a postgraduate course, we do require a bachelor degree. If you're an applicant who doesn't have a bachelor degree, we do have a different program. It is called the Professional Course in Australian Migration Law. It will be running in semester 1. This program has a few weekends of teaching and a few assessments. These assessments are to assess you and make sure that you can study at the level required for the graduate diploma. So we do have an alternative pathway for any students who don't hold that bachelor degree. So that's entry. I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions later. I'm happy to address any concerns you have. One of the main things I did want to point out with our degree next year, it is designed with full-time study in mind. We understand that people need to work, obviously, that's why I'm here tonight. But with our course, it's offered face-to-face in Melbourne, it's offered face-to-face in Sydney, and both of those offerings are held over weekends. And then we have an online stream, and it is held during the evenings. So it's all designed around the fact that you'll have work from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Finally, one thing on a personal note, I don't have a background in migration law, but I was talking to Roger the other day, and he was talking about how we teach students and we give them knowledge, but really we're making sure that when you advise clients, you're giving them the right knowledge. And I feel very honoured and very proud to be a part of that process, because I think it's a very good thing what migration agents are doing. I think it's very useful to be able for you to be able to provide adequate information to people who are going through so much, uprooting their lives and moving to this country, most of them in the hope of a better life. If you can provide adequate advice to them and assist them, then that's going to make it so much smoother for them. And when they've got a million things on their mind, if they can trust their migration agent, then I think it's going to make things a bit easier for them. So that's an idea of the course. As I said, I'm sure you have questions, and I'm happy to answer them later. But if you take anything tonight home with you, it's that Vic Uni's course is so good because our lecturers know what they're talking about. They're practicing migration agents. Before, in the courtyard, they were talking about visas that I had no idea what they were saying. It's because they know this material inside and out, and they're very, very current. And I think that's really what you want to be taught by. You want to be taught by people who are doing the job that you want to go on to do. So thank you, and if you have any questions, as I said, we're all very happy to take them.
Can you just talk in more detail about how you would go about doing the course if you don't have a bachelor degree, like you alluded to earlier?
Definitely. My first advice would be to see one of the staff after the presentation ends and get our contact information, so you can either call us or send us an email tomorrow, and we'll be able to sort of send out far more detailed information. But the idea is that we have a professional course that will be running most likely in April next year. It's taught over several weekends, and there are a couple of assessment items. So the idea is that we'll give you knowledge, and your lecturer will most likely be Roger. I think he normally runs it. And then you have an assessment, and assuming you complete the assessments, you will then be given a certificate that will allow you to enrol into the graduate diploma. So you would do the professional course semester 1, and then you would study the graduate diploma starting mid-year next year. The idea being that if you successfully complete these assessments, that you have proven that you can study at the level required for a postgraduate course, because it is a postgraduate course which is rather high. If you're an online student, then you would have classes in the evening, and it would either be on a Monday and Tuesday or a Wednesday and Thursday, depending on what subject, depending on what time of the year it is.
There's one more question. Like if someone have done the bachelor degree overseas and come here and did the postgraduate diploma IT here, is it okay to apply?
It is. We require technically we require the equivalent of at least an Australian bachelor. If your degree is from overseas, it will be assessed for an Australian equivalency, and we'll get, if you've already had that done, you can submit that with your application. If you have not had that done, we will get our international department to do that for us. So it might just involve a slight delay in assessing your application. Assuming it is the equivalent of an Australian bachelor or higher, you will be offered a place in our course. Just to touch back on the study modes, another good thing about our program is flexibility around study modes. So we generally have either face-to-face students or we have online students, but the good thing is that we can change that during the semester if your situation changes. So if you're coming to the weekend classes and then have to go overseas for family matters or for work, you can let us know and we can change your access so that you can access the online tutorials. A brief information about the online tutorials, because I'm sure a lot of students haven't studied online previously. What would happen is you would have an online tutorial which is held live in the evening. You will log into a system that we have, we call it VU Collaborate, and what you will see is the lecture slides and you will hear the lecturer lecturing live, and then there's a chat function to be able to answer and ask questions. And it's very interesting for me, who had no background in online learning coming into this course. The students and the lecturer, despite being digitally, separated, really seem to bond throughout the semester, much like you would with any teacher face-to-face.
Sorry, I've got a question about the nature of the assignments.
Yes.
Are they essays? If they're essays, how long? Are there presentations? What do they look like?
Okay, so the nature of the assessments are a variety. Now, it's interesting about this because in the grad cert, there were only 4 universities offering the program, as you're aware. I don't need to mention who they are. In the grad dip, there are, besides Griffith University, Murdoch and ourselves, there's a new set of universities that come into play. Now, the assessment comprises usually of assignments, which are problem-solving issues. Can be an analysis of a case also. It also can be, and we plan to have it still as part of the grad cert, we're going to have it at grad dip. You will have a mock interview. So for example, over the phone, a client will ask you a question. You've got to respond back with the advice, comply with the ethical requirements, all of those practical issues also. So the assignments, usually word limits are actually prescribed for it. That's how it's done, and you've got to answer it. But most of the subjects have an exam. Don't let that spook you out, because you've got to be able to have that exam skills, because at the end of the grad dip, and we want to prepare you for that, you've got to do this capstone, let's call it an exam, which could take a multiple form, including it could be a mock interview that they could have, it will be a written exam. So it's a different forms of assessment, not only to prepare you as agents, but also to prepare you for the capstone also.
So the capstone is done here at this university?
No, the capstone is not done by any of the universities who are involved in the graduate diploma. It must be someone independent. So the Office of the Mara have already done interviews about potential parties that could run the capstone. The truth is, no one knows who they are, and it's got to be legislated also.
So that capstone exam, that decides whether you will proceed as a migration agent.
2 parts. You must complete the graduate diploma, plus you must pass the capstone. Okay? Which is not just one exam, it could be different forms. Yeah.
So is there any clue how it is, and is it completely like an interview that we have?
No one knows as yet. Okay, so slight conflict I have here, I better reveal it, videos are still on. So I chair specialization at the Law Institute of Victoria, which if lawyers want to become accredited specialist in this particular area, they have to have 5 years experience, and they have to go through 3 modes of assessment. One is a written exam, one is a mock file which you can take home and you've got a short term to prepare. The other one is a face-to-face interview. A fake client, fictitious client will come across, talk to you about a problem, you videotape like I am now, and I get very nervous with videos all around. So you videotape, and then the assessors will have a look at it. No one knows who's going to get that particular task. It cannot be any of the universities involved in it. The Office of the Mara wants someone independent, so it's got to be someone independent from the providers. No one knows the form. It's got to be, all of this has got to be prescribed in a legislative instrument. It hasn't even been drawn yet.
Okay, and will there be any extra cost involved, or it's just...
It will be probably an extra cost because it's going to be a third party providing it. Yes, but no one knows what it is.
Any time limit for that, just like after completion of the course?
Okay, pure guess at the moment, because the legislative instrument is not out, my guess at the moment is they'll probably say within a certain duration you must actually there'll be a validity time period. I think it'll be a bit more generous than the 12-month period that we had previously. And they'll give you a certain period of time within which you have to complete the capstone exam. No one knows this yet because they don't even know who the party is that's going to be appointed for the capstone.
And if we are unable to pass that, will there be any retakes, and how many retakes? Is there any?
No one knows that, but I suspect there'll be multiple retakes that allow you to prepare for it. It also depends, I've got to say, who the capstone provider is to work out what their style of getting things done are. We've had equivalent previously where the Mara, let's call it the old Mara, had an exam called the MAPKI, which is the equivalent of a capstone exam. There was multiple choice. That's what they decided to have. So it's just depends about what happens, who they negotiate with, and what the legislative instrument actually says. And no one knows as yet because we haven't even seen it. I'm not sure if it's drafted.
I have two questions here. And the first one, upon the graduation, how long practical experience we need to attach with any migration agent company before we qualify as a migration agent? And the second, looking at the trend of Auxiliary immigration, looking like the trend is not so opening compared to before. So what is the industrial trend for the migration business in future based on the professional advice?
Okay. So your first question, what's the first question?
How long we need to
Okay.
attach to?
Okay. As part of the Kendall review, so they did a review on the profession, there is no professional practical experience that you need. So once you complete the course, although in one subject it's possible to get some practical experience, but if not, we've got simulated versions in that subject to ensure you've got practical experience like client interviews, those kind of things. You don't need to actually, similar to a lawyer where you need a work experience, you don't need any work experience at all. You pass the capstone, provided you meet the English language requirements, you can register then as a migration agent. So there's no work experience component at this stage. That's proposed anyway.
So just to add, and it also seems like there is a concern about transitioning from any field and into migration. And something that Roger touched on that I'd like us to expand on is with the assessments and the way the course is structured, you're not going out into the world completely blind. Our assessments are designed to replicate what you will be doing. You will be reviewing cases during this study, you will be reviewing cases after the study. A lot of assessments have a scenario that you will then write a letter either to the client or on behalf of the client. And I'm not a migration agent, but I see nods here that tell me that this is something you'll be doing once you leave this course. The course is designed to make sure that when you leave, you are work ready. One of the last unit, as I said, is about applying the knowledge. It is literally called Applied Migration Law. During that last unit, there is an optional placement you can apply for. These placement programs are something we've done very successfully in the graduate certificate, and all the feedback I've received this semester have been very positive. Students are very happy to have this option of applying for placements with firms. You then do 2 weeks of placement there, and you'll do an assessment based on that rather than other assessments in the unit. And that placement of 2 weeks, students have said, have made such a difference with their experience and their employability. So the university will provide the training for you so that when you leave, you will be able to act either on your own or with a firm. And it's because we designed the entire course to make sure that when you leave, you are work ready. Yep.
I just want to add to that about the optional placement. I encourage you to take up that option and apply for that. That was something that I did as part of the course. And it is really helpful to get into a firm and see how things run, get that practical experience to bring everything together that you're learning, and to give you a bit of an insight into what it'll be like when you finish. And it's a really practical, important part of the course. So if you're able to, I encourage you to look into that further, because it will help you to see how what you're learning works in practice.
I've seen so many graphical analysis of the migration agent profession that I myself am actually confused. Now, it's funny, so I'm going to use Yashpal as an example at the moment. There are some agents that come out of the course that are highly successful. Let's look at the positives first. They've got their niche market. Usually it might be because they're familiar with a specific country that they perform extremely well. They've got their contacts, they're able to do marketing, all of those points, that they're able to get clients with no problems at all. There are others though in the first year that don't succeed in the business at all, and primarily because of the lack of contacts. Now in this industry traditionally, and that's why in my view at least, they haven't insisted upon the work experience component. It's hard to get work experience. That's not only the Australian experience, but the similar style that they have in New Zealand, same profession, it's very hard to get experience. So the reliance is on contacts and the network that you actually build up to get the practical experience, not only from us in terms of the course and the industry practitioners that you have, but also, of course, your colleagues who you work together with, not only in this program, but other colleagues that you might have in the industry. So the trend in graphical analysis, the only trend that's quite clear is there's quite a considerable dropout in the first year of practice. So people actually register, they might renew, they might in fact decide that they don't want to, but the problem is no one really knows what the actual reason is. It could be maybe I want to start a family. It could be a number of reasons that no one really has done an analysis of. So we've got a graphical analysis. I've seen a lot that are successful. I've seen some that have decided, for example, someone's mentioned here, did it in 2016. For whatever reason you decided you didn't want to do it, but you want to come back into industry. No one's really provided a real reason why it is. So that's a problem with graphical illustration of things. So Yashpal, why don't you make a comment on that?
To be successful as a migration agent, just be honest. Honestly, once you start practicing, the first year is going to be challenging for sure. But you may come across clients where they may have met another migration agent and they would say that this guy told me this. And if you know that whatever information they've received or advice they've received is not the right one, or you think that you can, it's not, you have better advice, or you just have to be honest. And it goes that way. Okay, and if you don't know it, just say I don't know it, or you can speak to your senior. When I started practicing, I spoke to them. I used to call Roger once a week or twice a week. And when I finished my course, because that is the thing, that there's no one to look after you. And you have to be confident, you have to study, you have to be aware of the legislations, you have to read a lot of cases, you have to keep on upgrading yourself. And the more honest you be with your clients, the more outcome you receive, the more better it is for you. And it grows that way. Because if you're not honest and if it goes in a different way, then you spoil your name. And that's how I started that. If the client does not have prospects of the case, just be honest. Can't happen. This is what's going to happen, this cannot happen, or this may happen. And it will help you grow, honestly. And this is what they'll go and talk, that this guy will be honest and they will tell you the real option, rather than beating them around the bush. And you have always have an access to your seniors, always have access to your professors. And like I said, that I used to keep calling him and get advice as a senior. And it really helps you grow further. Yeah, so the trend is amazing, sir. As far as do the right thing in this industry, it's a great industry.
Just to be clear, it's a very, I say this and I get myself into a lot of trouble. You're really doing a lawyer's work in one specific area. Now, whether or not lawyers like it, tax, for example, tax agents, many years lawyers had it, conveyancing, it was lawyers' domain, now it's gone out. A lot of these areas are going out by other parties practicing in it. And you have to think like a lawyer practicing in this field. Now, it's a very unusual subject, this particular area, not unlike what you would study in law school at a traditional institution. This is a highly prescriptive, regulated area, and as you know, it's become a political football also. that governments of whatever persuasion like to change this all the time. And keeping up to date with the extremely prescriptive area of the law is hard in its own right, let alone the number of court cases coming out on a daily basis from the court levels that impact on this area. I used to do tax many years ago when I first started out this institution. I was teaching tax, and actually tax, hardly any cases come out these days. The commissioner tends to adopt a commercial approach. But most of the cases in the federal jurisdiction is migration related. Just have a look at it, it's just full. So it's complicated, the judges are interpreting the law. It's an interesting area, but it's not easy. It's a highly prescriptive area. And I've got to say, you've got to devote the time to study it. And it's not just, conceptual approach to things, it's very prescriptive. Lawyers don't get it also sometimes because they're used to discretion with a judge before them, certain things that can get done. There's hardly any discretion in this particular area.
Well, look, what I would say is, if you do the program, it is very interesting. You should not commence, however, unless you are serious, because it requires a lot of work and concentration, but you will find that it's well worth it in the long term, and you can in fact make a really good career out of this qualification. So I recommend you to think about whether or not you're going to start, but if you do, be really serious about it. Okay? I was just going to mention something. When Roger was talking before, he said it was all basically Australian based, and that's true to a certain extent. However, we do refugee law as part of the program, and refugee law is something that's of worldwide interest, and certainly with the common law countries, we look at law reports from England, from Canada, from the US, from India, and from many Commonwealth countries. So I just thought I would mention that it's not all Australian. Okay? Thank you.